Joined now in our studio by our senior political reporter, Ziyanda Ngcobo. Ziyanda, good afternoon to you. Okay, there are letters flying around on a WhatsApp group near you. In this case, it's a letter from the former Chief Justice, Ziyanda Ngcobo. Why does he want this extension?
So basically, he cited, when you look at the scope and the complexity of the work, that there's still a lot of ground that needs to be covered, and that they would need, looking at the available resources. I think that's very important to emphasize, that they would need a bit more time to be able to conclude their work. And he even says in this letter, which is dated on the 14th of November, to the Speaker of Parliament, that the panel is making this request mindful of the anxiety for the reports. And you'll know the anxiety, of course, is that ANC elective conference, when Parliament closes this year, because it means now with this extension, this matter won't be able to be debated before the House. Remember, there are several layers to this process. This was first to figure out whether or not there is even an inquiry that can be launched, and then if the Parliament does find that there is something worth launching an inquiry into, you'd have to have an impeachment committee, and that impeachment committee would also have to interrogate and investigate the nature of the allegations, and then would go back to the House, and then ultimately then, it would have to go to a vote as to whether or not the president is impeached. The long and short of it is that it's still going to be a while till we get finality to this matter.
A long while, I suspect. It's not, okay, there are many layers to this.
Yeah.
Who makes the decision to grant the extension? Is that just the Speaker, Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula?
It would seem that it is just her, and that's why in the EFF statement, they say that she's connived with the chair of this inquiry, and that she is actually factional and compromised, and of course referring to the fact that because now this matter won't be debated before Parliament closes, that this is, kicking the can further down the road, and that in terms of the internal party election that's taking place in December, that 55th National Conference, it's not going to be a political football, so to speak, and a spectacle as one would have anticipated. Of course, there's also the issue of whether or not the report will be made public, and so the likelihood of it also being made public before the end of the year is unlikely. If it's submitted on the 30th of November, obviously it would have to go to Parliament first before it's even made public. So still, back to square one. So it's the Hawks, it's the Reserve Bank, it's the Public Protector, and now this process that's currently taking place regarding the Phala Phala farm incident.
Never mind all the other politics. A finding by a former Chief Justice, another judge and an advocate, that the President has a prima facie case to answer that could lead to his impeachment, seems to me too big a thing to be kept secret. Whatever way it seems, just my understanding of our politics is never mind what's supposed to happen. It's just too big a thing.
Yeah, and so the likelihood is, of course, because the report will be sent to the likes of the ATM, who of course launched this process, there's a likelihood that they would share, especially if they do say that there is a case that the President has to answer to. But what does that mean process-wise? Again, it will boil down to just how much longer this will take. The first term is only likely to start in Parliament, at least, in February next year. By the time the State of the Nation address even takes place, the likelihood of it having been debated, is really low. The chances are quite low there, but it means within the arena, the public arena, it could still be debated.
Who's the head of strategy for the ATM again? Remind me. Is it Nzonele Mani?
You're being facetious.
No, spicy. There's another element to this, which is the panel could just find. So if we look at the nature of the panel, right, if we look at the nature of the question, it's a very, very narrow legal definition of prima facie evidence. It would seem to all have to be based in the end, never mind what the opposition parties say. It would have to be based on Arthur Fraser's affidavit. It would have to be verifiable. So it's entirely possible that the panel comes back in 2 weeks and says, actually, there's nothing to see here. There's no evidence, and that's the end of it?
Exactly. So if you look at what they need to be looking into, Stephen, they need to look whether there was a serious violation of the Constitution or the law, or if there was any serious misconduct or an inability to perform the functions of office. So that one, we're not sure if the Phala Phala farm scandal will fall within that scope. And it may boil down to technicalities of what serious misconduct really means, but also a serious violation of the Constitution. That would also hinge on an investigation by law enforcement authorities who have not completed their, their probe into the matter. So yes, it might just boil down to serious technicalities, remembering how how this, Section 89 process came about in 2018 as a result of that Constitutional Court judgment into the Nkandla report. And of course, former President Jacob Zuma didn't have to face this process because he had ultimately resigned. But at the end of the day, it may just boil down to words, semantics, and what information is before the table.
Ziyanda Ngcobo, our senior political reporter, thank you very much indeed. I do appreciate it.